Hello everyone and welcome back to Spoiler Warning, featuring myself, Tom Colohue. We are talking the wonderful world of wrestling, a crazy old time. There's already 34 people here. We are 2 likes from 20 and there's still no shame from the man to blame. We have plenty of stories for you today, plenty of news to dive into. We'll be talking the Royal Rumble fallout, WrestleMania plans already actively being changed, CM Punk confirmed injured in the Royal Rumble, TKO and their response to Triple H's press conference, plans for damage control going forwards, why we had Jimmy and Jey Uso starting the Royal Rumble, a little bit on Malachi Black, Elimination Chamber plans, who's going in the chamber and who's coming out the champion, a little bit on 2 reports that Dave Meltzer has confirmed of mine recently, a lot of Dave Meltzer chasing up on what I'm reporting at the moment, and an update on Brock Lesnar's status with the henceforth known as WWE. So, we have records here to break. We are currently only 4 likes away from a new record of likes on the chat. Record, as you remember, is 33. If we can beat 33 by 5 minutes past, we know we're going to have a good day. With 63 of you here, I believe that's possible. Now, also, please ignore this. My eldest child has very long nails, and she was wrestling earlier, so that's something that happens. We will be starting with the Royal Rumble fallout. I just want to make sure I'm keeping up with the chat as well. Hello to everyone who's already saying hi in the chat. If you are just joining us, please jump in and say hello. Let everyone know that you're here and make sure that everyone here knows that you have interests in these plot lines, in these storylines, in these pieces of news. Welcome everyone. Please get your questions ready as we get through our first piece of news and hit that like if you haven't already. The Royal Rumble is now around the corner and Triple H in particular is of the belief that they managed to get through it pretty smoothly. There was a lot of concern, particularly around the Vince McMahon news, but also a number of other pieces of information. For example, a number of minor injuries picked up by many different superstars in the Royal Rumble itself. There's a couple of people they're concerned with. Ivy Nile, for example, didn't have the smoothest of transitions and that raised some issues, but that seems to have been absolutely okay. There was a German suplex that went a little bit awry early on. Bayley was favouring her shoulder, but that is not a serious injury and it's something that is essentially a knock that she can work through. The big injury, pardon me, is to CM Punk. We'll get to that very shortly. We have at the moment a couple of major issues when it comes to the WrestleMania booking that's come out of the Royal Rumble. Firstly, while Triple H is very happy overall with how they presented Becky Lynch, there is a concern that there wasn't much Rhea Ripley on the card and not enough focus on her work. He did want to highlight the champions more, but decided to keep them out of the spotlight. They wanted a few backstage segments, but they ended up not quite happening and being cut for time, because the Women's Royal Rumble did go over by about 10 minutes. The Roman Reigns match also went over, which caused the show to go over what they had originally planned. This meant a couple of backstage segments were pulled, but the sponsor moments ended up going ahead. Promises were made to Slim Jim about a very prominent position in exchange for their continued patronage, and they do believe that any issues with sponsors have been smoothed out. Nick Khan has been speaking to Slim Jim directly to make that happen. As regards WrestleMania plans, one match that has changed and is guaranteed to be different is the planned Brock Lesnar versus Gunther Intercontinental Championship match, which post-wrestling, PWInsider and Dave Meltzer have recently reported was planned for WrestleMania. If you're a regular viewer of Spoiler Warning, this is something you knew about 4 months ago. If you're not a regular viewer, hit subscribe. It'll probably be worth it. As regards the match, Gunther is currently seeking a new opponent. Bron Breakker seems to have stepped into that gap. He did step into the Brock Lesnar-shaped hole very effectively, particularly for someone who isn't really that experienced on the main roster. He cut an interview afterwards, cut a promo, or had an interview afterwards, in which he did suggest that he was going to be full-time on the main roster from here on. That was not the plan as much as a week ago. The plan was a long-term tag team with Baron Corbin. That will also continue, but it looks like Baron Corbin is going to miss out on the long-term benefits of this partnership. Bron Breakker versus Gunther is something that Triple H is just at the moment trying to get through TKO. He doesn't expect there to be any issue with it. That storyline should have started tonight. There is one major problem with that, and that's that they may need Gunther for another match. Seth Rollins is injured at current, as we know. He should be returning to fitness in a few weeks, somewhere between 6 and 8. And essentially, while he will miss the Elimination Chamber, he will be fit in time for WrestleMania. I cannot say the same about his proposed partner/opponent. CM Punk did pick up an injury during the Royal Rumble. If you watch the Royal Rumble watch party here, you will notice that we did talk about the fact that he wasn't moving right, he was moving sluggish, and the actual end of the match, which was planned to be a 10 or so minute absolute high-tempo war between CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, did not come to fruition. Instead, they went for something very slow, very methodical, and CM Punk, reading the room, went heel so that he could give extra face heat to Cody Rhodes on his way out. CM Punk, I'm told, knew full well what the situation was as soon as he picked up the injury. It's said to have occurred as a result of a, something DDT. The one Drew McIntyre does. Future Shock DDT, that's the one. It's said to have been an end result of a Future Shock DDT, which of course means that unfortunately CM Punk's injury is unlikely to be one that he recovers from particularly quickly. This is something that the WWE are expecting him to be out for about 6 months. It's also almost exactly the same injury he had in 2022, which saw him vanish from AEW until the debut of Collision around 9 months later. The concerns are quite simple. Right now, for CM Punk, what the hell are they going to do for the first night of WrestleMania? They still want Seth Rollins to main event the first night of WrestleMania, but in order for that to happen, they'll need a top quality opponent. They can't exactly call on Brock Lesnar right now, more on that later. They may choose to go down the route of Gunther. There are a number of other people available that they consider top quality enough, such as, for example, Bobby Lashley, but that seems unlikely with other plans in place for him. With this in mind, at the moment, Gunther seems the most likely scenario. If it is Gunther in that spot, it means Bron Breakker will likely go back to NXT, or at least not have an obvious opponent on Raw, which was the plan as much as 10 minutes before that happened. As little, I should say, as 10 minutes before that happened, Bron Breakker versus Gunther seemed a likely scenario for WrestleMania. Now, Seth Rollins versus Gunther seems more likely, but what I will say as regards this, if Triple H is no longer confident that Seth Rollins and CM Punk is absolutely undeniable main event, Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch will return to the main event slot. It will return to the main event slot. To be clear, while there have been rumours of it I've seen on Twitter, I have not been told in any way that the finish of the Royal Rumble was changed because of the injury. From what I can tell, Cody Rhodes was always the plan to win the Royal Rumble. They were just very clever to make sure people believed it was going to be CM Punk. It was always a bit of a toss-up, to be fair. Well done them. So WrestleMania plans, they may be a changing. Let me catch up with the chat and catch up with some questions, and I'll go on to my next piece of news shortly afterwards. Lots on Cody. Hello, Spider Boss. Hello, Wiggly. Spider Boss says, nice video about Bron Breakker replacing Brock. Do you think Bron could beat Gunther? Could. No, don't necessarily think will, but I also think there's a high potential right now that Bron Breakker actually beats Gunther at Elimination Chamber, thus allowing the championship to change hands before we get to Seth Rollins. But we'll see how that goes. Spider Boss says, I like seeing Naomi and Jade at the Women's Rumble. Now the crowd was dead silent. It took a while to get there, but they got going. Spider-Boss thinks Gunther. Michael says, hi Tom. Hello Michael. I'm really enjoying your Twitter feed at the moment. I just like seeing you take it to people, which I respect, because I know you take it to me as well. I realise what I'm saying now, and I do apologise, but you know what I mean. So Vic says, hello Tom, hope you're doing better. I've got the miracle spray working, and it's doing me the world of good. We have 105 people watching, 50 likes, which is a great number so far. Still only half of you have hit that like button, so if you can hit the thumbs up, I'd very much appreciate it. Roger says, will we see more TNA wrestlers show up in WWE, or will we see WWE wrestlers show up in TNA? A number of concessions were made to TNA in order to get Naomi over the line, despite the fact that she still had a while left on her contract. Essentially, WWE bought out Naomi's contract in order to allow her to return. There was no talk of contract tampering. TNA were actually approached before Naomi was. So to be clear, TNA were approached before Naomi was. They made their commitments and said, we need this person in, we need this person in, and I feel that was a fantastic moment for them to have Jordynne Grace, their champion, involved as well. It's not the first time, it won't be the last time. TNA in Royal Rumbles is likely to happen quite a lot going forwards. It also is the beginning of a wider partnership. It's unlikely to see too many WWE wrestlers on TNA, but the opposite isn't so true. I do think there'll be quite a bit more variation and a few loans for WWE talent who maybe aren't getting too much attention on TV at the moment, or people who haven't long started their wrestling training, like for example Maxine Dupree. One says, let's go. Christopher says, Bailey. Khalid says, hey Tom, hey mate. FDR says, good day to you Tom, good day to chat as well. A very good day to chat, a very busy chat because of it. Marcel says, hi Tom and chat, how are you all? Doing pretty good myself, Marcel, how are you? Ross says, evening all, how are you doing, sir? FDR says, good day to you Tom, good day, I've read that one. Punk being injured now even with Seth, yet the main event of night one has fallen apart entirely. Raymond says, hello Tom, hope you're doing well, doing much better, thank you. Razar says, hello Tom, seated for spoiler warning, seated, stretched, ready to go. Joey says, do you see Gunter taking Punk's spot now? More likely than not, yes. Sai says, evening all. Good evening, Sai. King Azza says, hey Tom, do you agree the fact that Cody and Roman need to tell a different story instead of Cody doing it for his dad? Yes, I do. And I think the last match is the story because it's no longer about Dusty Rhodes. Now Cody has a point to prove that he can actually do it. I will repeat what I've said previously. I believe on night 2, we will see Jimmy Uso beaten by Jey Uso. We'll see Solo Sikoa beaten by Randy Orton, thus allowing Cody to go one-on-one with Roman Reigns. Matthew says, good evening, Tom and chat. Happy Monday. Happy Monday, Matthew. Nice to see you. And Daniel says, yo, you're right. Joey, we will be talking about that Meltzer report shortly. Thank you for sourcing. Jordan says, hi Tom, hope you're good mate. Very good, thank you Jordan, nice to see you. Sovik says, hello Sovik. And Ori says, Colohue over Meltzer. High praise indeed. Thank you kindly for that one, Ori. I'm going to skip down a little bit and just get back to it because I know what's just happened and I just want to make sure to read it out before going back to the chat. Thank you very much, Martin. I kind of assumed it would have been you. You've been incredibly generous over the last few months essentially since meeting you, and I just want to say a massive thank you. Gifting 5 memberships to the chat. Joey receives one, Steve receives one, Chris receives one, Raymond receives one, Marcel receives one as well. That is 5 gifted memberships. There will be more members only content coming. Right now there is a bit to dive into and a bit to sink your teeth into, but most of it by now is quite outdated, so I'll just warn you ahead of time on that one. Right, where was I? Joey says, do you think it was Ring Rust that got Punk injured or his age catching up to him? I believe it's simply a combination of both. Chris says, good evening Tom, still recovering from the Royal Rumble and getting ready for Raw tonight. I'm aware that you're hosting a watch party, so if anyone is looking for a Raw watch party, pardon me, Chris has got you covered. Bailey says, Jordynne Grace was the unexpected star coming out of the Rumble. I absolutely agree with that. She showed out and she showed off. Spider-Boss says, people used to complain about Charlotte, but Cody getting everything silver-handed so easy, that's why fans turned on Charlotte. I think that's true, but the loss at last year's WrestleMania kind of makes the lie out of it. Ray says, what brand do you think Naomi will be on? Hard to say. I think it'll be Raw, primarily because SmackDown's basically locked down for now. On Monday Night Raw, it's an ideal opponent for someone like a Rhea Ripley. So she can step into that gap, and then later on when Rhea Ripley's moving to SmackDown, Naomi versus Bayley also makes sense. KJ says, Cody lost a tooth on a Claymore per WWE footage. He hit it very well during the press conference, but yes, he did indeed. Razar says, what did you think of the Rumble pay-per-view? It was okay. It was a solid, standard B show for WWE. I think the way that Triple H likes to book the Royal Rumble isn't necessarily the way that I like to consume a Royal Rumble. There's a lot less surprises, and I get it, and I respect why he does it, but I don't necessarily enjoy it as much as I would the other way around. Edward says, hey Tom, I went to the Rumble and the women's match was so much fun. Loved seeing Bayley get her moment in person. Joey says, do you think Triple H is going to feature big wrestlers in less matches to avoid any more injuries? He's already actively doing so. It just hasn't worked out. There are a lot less live shows happening at once, which is definitely really helping keep people fresh. And you can also see a lot more rotation in the main event scene for that same reason, including breaks to people like Sami Zayn. Then says, some fans said the Royal Rumble was not a good show. Do you agree with the fans? Nope, I think it was a good show. I don't think it was a great show. I don't think it was a Royal Rumble show. Level great. One says, didn't CM Punk suffer the same injury in AEW along with a broken foot? Yes, he did. KJ said, he said Brock and Gunter were not Punk and Rollins. There's a chance. Okay. Blue says, so Rhea Becky back on for Mania main event. Quite possibly. I've covered that one already. FDR says, I feel Brock versus Gunter is as good as it gets. Braun versus Gunter is as good as it gets as a replacement for Brock. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Jason says, hello Tom and chat, greetings to you all. JJ says, I don't think Becky looked good in the Rumble. She only eliminated one person. I wanted her to really look like a threat for Rhea. I agree with that. I think Becky had some good moments, certainly her opening bout with Nia Jax, but she did step aside pretty heavily for Jade Cargill. Danielle saying Braun eliminated Omos. I'm not going to focus on that too much because I worry that will end up being the WrestleMania match with Gunter moving on to Seth Rollins. KJ saying the Omos elimination went unnoticed. Yeah, because Omos is not a big deal. Dan says, hello Tom, hope all's well. Punk's tricep injury again? Yes, it is indeed, unfortunately. Marcel says, have Cody and LA Knight switch brands? LA Knight versus Seth, Cody versus Roman I hope for, but think the first won't happen. LA Knight, I believe, still has a date with Logan Paul. Steve says, was Cody always the plan to win the Rumble? Yes. Daniela says, Tom, did you just say Braun is on Raw tonight confronting Gunter? If so, it'll probably happen after Gunter retains over Kofi. Braun is apparently up to the main roster. I'm confident he'll be a Raw competitor. Tonight will be an ideal time. I don't know if he will confront Gunter. That really depends on whether or not they go with Gunter versus Seth. Crush says, devastated for Punk, but he went full pro at the end for Cody. Yes, he did. Nothing but respect for him for that. And KJ is shouting, Future Shock DDT, because I did forget it, and I thank you very much for it. Spider-Boss says, if Cody beat Roman, what next? Once he beat the final boss in the game, then there is nothing to do for the one who defeated the final boss. Once you beat the final boss, you become the final boss. It's a Streets of Rage scenario. Michael says, it's always about Dusty, and I don't like that. I agree. Also says, Brian Alvarez reported, thank you for sourcing as always, that Punk tore his pec off the bone. So pec and tricep. Ouch. I think The Undertaker had that injury and it took him out for a year. He only wrestled for like 20 more years after that. Roger says CM Punk is injury prone. Unfortunately, he seems to be picking up a few at the moment. I think long term, maybe a new fitness regime might work. He might want to talk to Sheamus about that one. Something is clearly not working for him. A room with a mini moose. What a name. Says CM Punk is made of paper. Wouldn't go that far. Certainly he seems a bit more susceptible than he used to be. Chris suggests Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre versus Sami Zayn. Seems unlikely, especially if Drew McIntyre is leaving the days that follow. Dan says, just make CM Punk a manager at this point. Sadly, he's too injury prone. He absolutely would refuse to do that. Ed, welcome, sir. Says, of all the questions surrounding Punk and Rollins, could Bianca versus Jade make sense as a women's main event? Not necessarily. They don't have that much confidence in Jade yet. They have confidence, just not that much. Not main event confidence. One says, at least WWE didn't make Punk champion while injured like AEW did, so I'll give them credit there. True. Blue says, Seth versus Drew. Drew wins and Priest cashes in, ruining Drew's unfair life again. Unlikely, as I've mentioned before, I do see Damian Priest interrupting the main event of night one, or at least the Seth Rollins match. I just don't think it will be a case of anyone winning the match and then he cashes in. I think that Mr. Heist of the Century will be Heist of the Centuried. KJ says, I think Becky and Rhea could get the main event spot with Punk out. Joey says, do you think Punk will try to work through the injury or will WWE make him sit out? There is no chance he will work through the injury. He absolutely worked hard to provide a Royal Rumble finish. He will not be able to work through this injury. Khalid says, I want to see Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch. It'll be a good match. Blue says, I believe Wrestling Observer said Brock was supposed to get eliminated by Dom, so he could fight him in Perth. Know anything about that, Tom? More on that shortly, where we go into the section where Dave Meltzer has been confirming a lot of my reports recently. Roger, this is just juice. It's just juice. Good old fizzy juice. I am a child. The dude says, evening Tom and chat. Saw some pro AEW accounts on X celebrating the injury. Just awful stuff. Wholeheartedly agree. It's disgusting when stuff like that happens. Noom says, hello Mr. Colohue. How are you doing? Doing very well, thank you, Noob. Thank you for joining us. Joey says, if Gunter faces Seth, do you see him vacating the IC title going into Mania? I do not. I see a Hogan versus Warrior situation. I see him leaving with both championships. Although, not because of the whole, because of the Heist of the Century thing, which will allow him to maintain undefeated while being an Intercontinental Champion. Seth would take the pin. Coot43 says, could Drew potentially be in that spot or not since he hasn't signed a new contract? At current, no. 23 says, what is next for VKM? That depends on a whole lot of things, which most of which I can't comment on at this point in time. The other Mike says, if we remember, Bron was the last person to pin Gunter. Riyadh says, hey Tom, hope you and your family are doing well. Doing pretty well, thank you, Riyadh, appreciate that. David says, Tom, is WWE hoping all the Vince McMahon lawsuit allegations is forgotten? I am not going to comment at this time. Eric says, I don't think they changed the finish of the Rumble because they had already made the personalised t-shirt that Cody wore at the press conference. They did not change the finish of the Rumble. Robin Dave says, hey Tom, I have a friend of mine. He hates Seth Rollins with a passion. He wanted him to get injured. That's just wrong. I suggest that the friend that you have is not a good person. Riyadh says, Tom, with Punk's injuries, my dream of Gunter becoming a WWE World Champion closer to becoming a reality. Nope, it's exactly where it was. Razar says, man, WrestleMania 40 might be cursed. Seth, Punk, Charlotte, Bianca and Gunter Brock all cancelled is unfortunate. And Khalid says, I really hope we see Bron Breakker tonight on Raw. Spider-Man says, my concerns about Cody winning at 40 is once Cody wins the title, fans will turn on him. Quite possibly, which is why I'm sure he'll lose it fairly quickly. Also says, as long as the storyline makes sense, I'm okay with Rhea versus Becky being main event. Now Becky already passed the torch in WrestleMania 38 to Bianca. I suspect Becky's going to lose that one as well. Bailey, we will be discussing Brock Lesnar's WWE status in one of our headlines later today. During the show. Sovic says, hello Tom, is there a chance for Punk to have Rollins match at SummerSlam? There is a chance for pretty much anything to happen. Everything is on the table. I don't think he'll be back by SummerSlam. Sovic will be talking about the contract situation soon as well. A lot of chat today, guys. Absolutely loving it. It's one of the reasons the chat is so busy is because you guys are talking. We have 60 likes. Martin, such a generous donation. We are seeing this channel grow and grow and grow. And the more that happens, the more people come in, the more the chat rate goes. The busier it is, the more people come in. You're seeing that momentum go. I very much appreciate all of you for all of the help that you're giving me simply by being here. Fresh says, TNA invasion. I don't think there's an advantage to an invasion, but I do think we'll see more of them. Roger says, I thought Moose would have been in the men's Royal Rumble. To my knowledge, Triple H was offered Moose and was simply not interested. Take that what you will. Michael says, how do you feel about Bobby Lashley's recent booking? I've enjoyed it. I think having him in this sort of managerial role has been very beneficial. Pardon me. I also think they're protecting him nicely. There's a lot of risk when it comes to someone like Bobby Lashley about essentially not getting the rub of the green, as it were, not giving him the strength that he needs to long-term survive. I think they're doing well. Riyadh says, Tom squashes Meltzer. Wouldn't know. The man's pretty buff. Robin Dave says, Dave Meltzer, is that Rock versus Roman is planned for this year? You know anything about this? I know exactly what everyone knows about this. Dave Meltzer will keep mentioning The Rock because it makes him money. Marcel says, thanks for the membership to Martin, which I appreciate. Always make sure to thank people who give you that donation. Razar says, honestly, at this point, Bayley versus Io should get the main event. They got the best story going into WrestleMania on top of Bayley winning the Rumble. The pieces are there if they push it right. I agree with that, to be clear. Joey says, is Carmelo already called up since he's been working on SmackDown and NXT? Technically, no, because he's working on both, he's not fully called up as of yet. Hector says, guess this is a fortunate way to take advantage of an unfortunate event because this puts Punk in the driver's seat for Rumble victory in 2025. Derek Loud and welcome says, actually, for WrestleMania for the World Heavyweight Championship, I would do Drew McIntyre versus Gunter versus Damian Priest versus Seth Rollins and the 3 of 4. I might need a bit more information, Derek. I'm not entirely sure what you're going for there. Then says, tonight, new WWE Tag Team Champions DIY. I find it unlikely. They are building towards a WrestleMania match and they need something to occupy Damian Priest. They do need something to occupy him and keep him busy, essentially. Joey says, do you have any news on Jade and Bianca having a match at Mania? I was the first one to report, as many of you are aware, when it comes to Jade Cargill, that she would be debuting in the Royal Rumble. Something I reported a long time ago, not long after she actually arrived in the company. When it comes to Jade versus Bianca, it is an option. I still am keeping an eye on Jade versus Nia Jax. I'd imagine Nia Jax will be looking for some revenge tonight. FDR says, on another note though, Jade Cargill effortlessly throwing out Nia Jax is a star-making moment. Eric says, Andrade back for good or just a one-off? He's back for good. The other Mike says, Jade going to Raw makes sense. No, yes it does. I also reported that a while back as well. Blue says, Cody hasn't had everything handed to him. He was there for years before coming back. He did it the hard way. Chris says, Cody and Bayley will be on Raw tonight, and the first hour is commercial free. Ori says, I'm sad we didn't get the usual Kofi crazy spot. Why do you think we aren't having that anymore? A few reasons. Firstly, Kofi's been struggling to come up with inventive ways to make those spots happen. Secondly, Triple H doesn't want an obvious planned spot happening every single year, which I feel is a shame because it's a good spot to have and it gets people talking and it goes viral like they want to have happen. So I think it's a shame they're not really doing it anymore, but I don't suspect we're going to see it regularly going forwards. No, Joey, I don't know what the plan is for Andrade on Raw. My suspicion is that he'll be a lot more involved on SmackDown with the LWO and Legado. That's where I personally see it going. King Azza says, Tom, looking back, Cody losing to Roman last year was the right call. Different people will be saying different things there. Zane says, well, the best women's rumble, it depends on how you look at it. If you base it on star power, absolutely. Not sure I agree with that, to be honest. Chris says, hello, Tom. If Gunter moves in to face Seth, what happens with the IC title? I've explained what I think is going to happen. If you missed the first section where we discussed all of that, zip it back to the beginning of the stream. The first 10 minutes or so, we talk about changes to WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble fallout, also what happened with CM Punk, and of course, Cody Rhodes. Robin Dave says, what's the plan for Jade Cargill? Believe I've covered that. Jason says, if it's Rhea versus Becky at WrestleMania, does that lead to Bayley versus Io? It was always going to be Bayley versus Io. I've reported that quite a few times now. Eric says, good evening, Tom. How are you and your health? My health is good, sir. I still have a bit of a cough. I still need to use my fancy throat spray every now and then. But I'm feeling very good. Thank you for checking in. Steve says, what's happening, Tom and chat? Hope everyone is doing well. We are officially on the road to WrestleMania 40. Steve, I really liked your Rumble prediction video. I like how you've recorded it and laid it out. I like that could have been like a full live stream, which you just cut together. I like that feel and that vibe, and I feel it flows really nicely. Sometimes I do struggle to look back on your live streams because I know they're going to be quite long to get to sort of the meat on the bones. That's a really good way of doing it, and I like what you did there. Michael says, PWInsider reported Mercedes will not be going to TNA or WWE and will be returning in March. It's not really a surprise there. Spider-Boss says, when I grew up watching WWE, fans didn't turn on wrestlers so quickly. Nowadays, fans turn on everyone once their favourites become champions, because so many wrestling fans have decided that they are smarter than the average fan, primarily because they watch people like, I don't know, me? I'm part of the problem there. It also says, without credible tag teams on WWE, who could beat the Judgment Day at WrestleMania 40? DIY. Bailey says, I'm not sure who's a larger annoyance for Adam Pearce right now, Chelsea Green or R-Truth. Seems like he is having to be a chaperone at the moment. Also, Spider-Boss says, it was weird not seeing Legends on the Women's Rumble this year. Steve Edmonds says, who will be the next TNA star to cross the line? Hard to say, but LA Knight has asked about the potential of popping up a few times on TNA. Just pointing that one out. Eric says, do you think we're getting Bianca Belair versus Tiffany Stratton? No. Sai says, Alvarez said tricep off the bone, not pec. Thank you, Sai, for the clarification. Chris says, based off what Hunter stating the story isn't done yet coming out of last year's Mania, I believe Hunter had already put Cody as the winner of the Royal Rumble. I was confident he'd put Cody as the next challenger for Roman Reigns again. Not so much about the Royal Rumble. I was surprised by this, and I like that. Then says they need to do a better job booking the females. The crowd had no clue for half of them or didn't care to. I thought it was great overall. 7 out of 10. Bayley winning was great. And Steve says, is CM Punk made of glass? Real glass. Cry me a river. KJ, there will be a little bit as regards Malachi Black. Yes. Raymond says the men's rumble was okay. Seems like it used more to further current storylines and not build as much towards Mania. And Kervin says Pat McAfee was a waste of a pick. Disagree. They were trying to create viral moments and it will have that play-by-play. We'll see how it goes. Joey says, is Jade going down to NXT or is she going to the main roster? Plans at the moment involve her being on the main roster. Just catching up. There's a lot happening. Thank you very much once again, Martin, doubling up and another donation. Apologies for taking so long to mention it. Thank you very kindly. It does mean the world to me that you and so many others are being so generous. I will point out you've given a lot to this channel this week, mate. Maybe keep a little bit for yourself. Thank you very kindly. Andy Barr says WWE made Jade look like a star, and Brad says never celebrate an injury, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Get the tables. You alright, guys? Been a little while. Says, do you think in the future we see men from TNA in the Royal Rumble? Absolutely, I do. The WWE did reach out to TNA early in the Royal Rumble booking process about the idea of essentially getting Naomi and potentially what would we need to do to make it happen. TNA gave them a list of essentially demands, most of which the WWE did go ahead with, but they didn't get everything they were looking for, and they made a good deal to essentially buy out Naomi, who wasn't quite finished with her contract as of yet. I do think we'll see more of this in the future, particularly a TNA Knockouts champion regularly making appearances. Spider-Boss says, any plans for Liv now she is back? Yes, but as I've mentioned previously, I do expect her to be involved in the tag division going into WrestleMania. I did report that Liv Morgan would be returning in the Royal Rumble in, I believe, November. Michael says, WWE doesn't give a single about Tegan. What I will say, Triple H does, the creative team don't. Spider-Boss says, at this point, Roman versus Cody 2 should be no DQ so people don't complain when the bloodline get involved. Why not? After all, as I mentioned, Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa likely to be out of the picture there. Barry says, a TNA fan, I hope any crossovers are very limited and it doesn't become seen as a feeder promotion for WWE. That is a risk, unfortunately, that I think they will have to take. There are huge benefits to playing that role. Edward says, Bayley's advertised for Raw tonight. Do you think she confronts Rhea only for Rhea to warn her about damage control? Not sure, but I do think there'll be a moment between Bayley and Rhea and no damage control in sight. Kevin says, what about Bayley versus Io Sky getting main event of night 1? Becky versus Rhea Ripley was the original plan for night 1. Pardon me, and I expect that to continue. No need to say sorry, Mark. Thank you very kindly for zipping back as well. I'm not drinking Juice Robinson, Eric. That's very sexual, and I forgive you in many ways not to say it again. King Alice says, hey Tom, I know you're going to disagree with me. I want Roman to beat Cody again. I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm just not going to agree with you. Zane says, Pat McAfee says he would have picked Seth Rollins if he won the Royal Rumble match. Source, WrestleZone. Thank you, Zane. FDR says, well, we are indeed on a rocky start to the road to WrestleMania. Eric says, any news on what brand Andrade will be on? I'm guessing. I suspect SmackDown. Daniela says, Dragunov versus Trick this Sunday for NXT title at Vengeance Day. If Trick wins it, does it free up a dream match between Gunter and Dragunov for the IC title at Mania Night 1 and Gunter challenges Seth Night 2? There are possibilities. It's a lot of assumptions there. WrestleBuzz says, hi Tom, any idea of what type of chamber matches we will see this year? The idea was that CM Punk was going to be winning an Elimination Chamber match. I think Gunter will take his place in the Elimination Chamber to determine the challenger for Seth Rollins. Damian Priest likely to be involved in that one as well. On the women's side, let's wait a little bit because I'll get to the Elimination Chamber booking a little later. Roger says, who do you think has been the worst booked wrestler in WWE in 2023? No comment on that one. Daniela says, what a waste of a spot to give to McAfee just for him to eliminate himself. Do you have that same mindset, Tom? No. It was a cheap laugh. What a waste of a cheap laugh for R-Truth. What a waste of a cheap laugh for Valhalla. Sometimes you've just got to break up the show. On to say, Tom, according to Mike Johnson from PWInsider again, Mercedes Money return to the ring is destined for early March, which lines up with AEW Revolution. Forgot to include that in the beginning. No worries, Juan. Blue says, Braun is in the Dusty Classic still, I believe. I have covered that at the beginning of the show, Blue. By all means, zip back and check that out. Astrid. Hello, Astrid. Quick thing. You created a video on YouTube with all of your interviews and stuff. A couple of things. Firstly, the keyword is WWE Royal Rumble 2024. If you don't include the 2024, you will lose views because you won't get the search traffic the same. Because if people search Royal Rumble, they'll find 2023, 2022, and it splits it all up. If you type in 2024, you'll get the most search traffic. I also suggest you split them up and at least include the wrestler names because that will also increase your view count. Wrestler names in general are good SEO. Also, hi. Really happy to see your success at the moment. Long may it continue. Get the Table says, with Ronda's comments this past weekend, do you think Bruce will be on his way out? They're not going to act just on what Ronda Rousey said. However, I do suspect the investigation will include Bruce Pritchard, and rightly so. Spider-Boss says, how Bron Breakker on the main roster was a long overdue. Bron Breakker should have been on the main roster a while ago. They cancelled his call-up about 5 times, so I'm glad they finally got there. Razar said, is Jade officially on the main roster? No official confirmation has come one way or the other. I see her on Raw. I expect it'll be Nia Jax versus Jade Cargill at WrestleMania. One says, I say Seth retains at Mania. then Damian Priest cashes in like Seth did in WrestleMania in 2015. Those two things are completely exclusive to each other. Seth cannot retain and then Damian Priest cashes in if Damian's going to do what Seth did. Seth didn't wait until someone had won. Seth got into the match. That's what I think is going to happen. I understand KJ, but basically I expect Jade Cargill to squash the hell out of Nia Jax, and I think a lot of people would be more behind that concept. Castellar says CM Punk injured in AEW and now in WWE, and also says Bayley is over. Yes, she is. Very popular indeed. Who also suggests give the Usos a ladder match, which is a lovely idea, but I don't necessarily think they have a reason for a ladder match. There's no championship involved. Vegeta says, hi Tom, hello Vegeta. Squid, thank you very kindly. A generous donation, thank you very much. Says, cheers Tom, hope you're doing well, and rewinding to the start. There's a little thing underneath that says, let's celebrate their third Super on a live stream. If I click it, nothing happens. But there's a little free next to it, and I very much appreciate that, Squid. Thank you very much for being part of this community. Hector says, with the Kabuki Warriors now the women's tag champs, I wonder what they'll do at Mania. I don't know if there's an obvious challenger for them at this point. Maybe have Bayley do double duty. I would go with a four-corners tag team match, including, for example, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, if Raquel Rodriguez is back by then, and a number of other tag teams, for example, the ones they just won the championships from. FDR says, Bayley main eventing night one with EO isn't that bad of an idea. Never said it was a bad idea, just said that Rhea Ripley, Becky Lynch has already been in that spot and they seem likely to take it back there. Vapecart says, hi everyone. Hello Vapecart. Richard says, hello Tom and all. Wow, I'm in awe of the power of Jade Cargill. She picked Nia up like a stick. The power and muscle on Jordynne Grace. It was very, very strong at Rumble Field. Joey says, do you have any news on Sheamus and Rey? Why weren't they in the Rumble? Rey Mysterio, to my knowledge, has been cleared and should have returned, but it didn't pan out that way. Something must have happened or got in the way, or they just went in a different booking direction. Sheamus, to my knowledge, not quite ready to come back just yet, but he's extremely close. It seems like he's always extremely close. Something might be going on there. Wiggly says, with Asuka as a part of the Kabuki Warriors, maybe she'll finally get a win at WrestleMania. I hope so. I really do. Wiggly says, a friend of mine keeps doing my head in saying Rock vs Reigns will headline Mania. Tell me he's wrong. He's wrong. Michael says, Dakota not cleared yet. I've had different things on that. As you know, Michael, I've had different things. I first heard that Dakota was cleared many moons ago. They were just waiting for the right storyline for it. I thought the Rumble would have been perfect. Maybe that information was wrong. Nelson says, do you think there's a possibility Okada goes to WWE? Yes, there's always a chance. A very, 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 very slim chance, but a chance nonetheless. KJ says, speaking of PWInsider's latest report about Mercedes, they said no TNA, no WWE, and couldn't confirm AEW. What kind of report is that? A clickbait one. They've reported nothing, and you've seen it somewhere, so it's worked. Raymond says, I laughed so hard when Truth ran out for the Women's Rumble. Truth is comedy gold. Dan coming in with a question I did not expect. Have you watched the new Ghostbusters International trailer? I haven't. I might do now, because suddenly I'm intrigued. Suddenly you're making me care. Richard says, Chelsea Green was the start of the Women's Royal Rumble. God love her. 23 Fresh just says, Nikki and Brie just made a tweet. Congratulations to them. They've earned it. Martin says, it's fine, mate. Felt a bit bad after Confusion Sunday. No confusion, don't worry. But glad I could clarify to you privately. Roger says, Jey Uso versus Bronson Reed tonight on Raw. Source WWE X Twitter. Perfect source in there, Roger. Appreciate you. Sovic says, what are the plans for Elimination Chamber? That is one of my headlines I will get to. There's a lot happening right now. A very busy chat. I'm nearly caught up, at which point we'll get to our further headlines. Joey says, Jordynne Grace fit in really good with WWE. Do you see her going over full-time in the future? Maybe. WWE, to my knowledge, are interested, but they don't want to get in the way of TNA. Steve says, thanks, Tom. Appreciate the feedback. I'm looking to try and everyone the best of both worlds moving forward. Keep up the great work yourself. Good to see you thriving on YouTube. Thank you, Steve. I very much appreciate you for saying that. The dude says, considering Pat spoke at length today about the Rumble live on ESPN, I wouldn't say it was a wasted spot. Mainstream coverage is what it's all about. Exactly. Vegeta says, I heard Raw from Andrade. What's your source, mate? Andy says, TNA title match at Mania? No. Astrid says, thank you. No worries, Astrid. If this isn't feedback that you're interested in, please do let me know. I've lost friends previously because I tried to give them feedback on what I think will get them more views, and they unfollowed me and blocked me. Yeah, that was a long time back. Joey says, will Gunter even be able to work the chamber? I remember seeing something before that he had passport problems and couldn't leave America. To my knowledge, that's been sorted since. Roger says, has WWE got any plans to sign free agents at the moment? Some. They're working on a few things. Blue says, hasn't Kofi failed his last couple of escape attempts? Yes, he has. I think the next time we see him do it will be his last Royal Rumble. Also says, if Priest tries to pull off the heist, I get the vibe he'll lose. I personally do not. KJ says, Gunther can't work outside of the US apparently. He said himself in an interview with Crone, it was a 6-month thing dating back to last year. If he absolutely could not work outside the US at all, how's he going to get home? I think it may be a visa issue that's thus fixable. Rhea Ripley had something similar way back when. Blair says, greatest 90s WCW tag team, Steiners. Nathan says, do you think there's any build-up for Jimmy Uso to turn on Roman Reigns? Seems like there's maybe something in the works for a reversal of the typical Royal Rumble Roman Reigns interference to end the bloodline. Could, probably won't. He already did and then came back. Spider-Boss says, it was funny seeing some fans expecting Mercedes at the Royal Rumble 2024. Mercedes is so good at trolling. I never saw it happening. At no point did I get conclusive confirmation. I just never saw it happening. Blue said Dakota will reveal she's cleared when she beats up Bayley when Damage Control finally turns on Bayley, allowing for Dakota to wrestle close to home at Elimination Chamber. You enjoying that, Dan? Are you enjoying that? KJ says, I know I spoke to you about it before, but do you have anything on Balor? Would you see him leaving or staying, in your opinion? Personally, I see him leaving, but I don't have any reason to believe that. That's just a personal opinion. Astrid says, no, thank you. I appreciate it. Wonderful. If you do want to talk about stuff like that, please do reach out. I'm more than happy to have that conversation. You, after all, have done me a massive favour, helping me to make Ed cry, which is a wonderful moment of my life. Daniela says, why on earth is Dragon Lee still in NXT? Shouldn't he be main roster permanently? That was the report. Razar says, do you think Mercedes will have a long-term run of AEW if she goes? I remember reports saying she didn't want to sign any long-term contracts with New Japan and AEW before. Depends what you define as long-term. 2 to 3 years, maybe, but she's not a long-term person anymore. She really doesn't. Dan says, Jimmy versus Jay ladder match for custody of Solo. Jesus Christ. Custody of Solo. Gotcha, KJ. Bless says, will Doug Dillinger ever return the head of security? No. And Astrid said, that was priceless, thank you. No worries. I mean, you're doing the thing right now, Astrid. You're doing the thing. And we're extremely happy to see it. Long term, I'm really excited by the idea of more of us doing the thing. More of the people in this community becoming a part of wider wrestling journalism. I think, for example, Michael, you've got everything it takes, mate. Everything it takes. There are ways to make it happen. Astrid is setting a trail that many of us could potentially follow. Also, it's nice to have, quote-unquote, proper journalists in the crew. Badaboss suggests Jimmy versus Jay Rikishi is a special referee. That's not going to happen. That's picking a favourite child. As a parent, you don't do that. Also, once again, this is from my eldest, who will never cut her damn nails. And we were wrestling, and this happens. Usually she doesn't wrestle. It's getting a good kick on her. I'm really proud of it. Lauren, how you doing? So sending good vibes. The last few days have been absolute chaos, and still are. We've only had one headline so far, 45 minutes in. We're about to get to the next one, don't worry. Whereas I says long term, in more than a year, in my opinion, I don't see her doing more than a year in AEW, but I could be wrong. And James says, rewatching the Rumble, just realising Jimmy was impersonating Umaga when the face-to-face happened. Blair says, what is the best location for a wrestling announcer? At wrestling events. Vapecast says, Tom, do you think more NDA stuff will be coming out soon? I am not going to comment on that one, because I am not going to prejudice the court case that is ongoing. Next up, we have more headlines. We have so far discussed the fallout from the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania plans changing, another match changing, and the CM Punk injury. If you want to check those out, zip back to the beginning of the video. It's all there for the first 10 minutes or so. Then come back to 45 minutes, and we'll continue going. As we're here, we have 120 people watching, 76 likes so far, 4 more. Will get us to 80, which is a huge number for a spoiler warning. Usually after a few hours, we get up to the 100, but we are very close to it during the show, which is incredible. Thank you to everyone who's watching. I have news on TKO's response to Triple H's press conference. TKO, sources indicate, TKO was unhappy with the idea of going ahead with the press conference after the Royal Rumble. Triple H was keen to continue and was confident that he could manage the situation. Now, with that happening, the situation does seem to have been pretty well managed. The WWE did allow questions to be asked by all of the different wrestling journalists there. As you recall, I did watch that live on stream and named a few of them. I have a lot of respect for quite a few of the people there. Less respect for other people there, but you know how it is. I was putting over Brandon Thurston because I do think he is the best of the best when it comes to wrestling journalism. But I also put over Rick Ucchino. Really good guy. Just genuinely a really good guy. Worked with him in the past. Kind of love him. It's amazing. There's other people I like to see these press conferences. Stephanie Chase, I really like her work. As you guys know, I've tried to put her over on this channel before. If you don't follow Stephanie Chase, she has a YouTube channel. Check it out. I was there when she launched it. I was encouraging her to do it. And she's done fantastic since. Check it out. She asks the tough questions as well. Having allowed the moment to proceed, TKO are more than satisfied with Triple H's handling of it, and they are eager to allow further press conferences of that like. TKO in many ways have an even higher opinion of Triple H now than they did, primarily because he didn't just handle the situation, he filibustered the damn thing. Now, admittedly, fans on social media aren't the biggest fans of the way that Triple H handled it. He did dodge questions pretty effectively and wasted time. However, what else was he gonna do? Not much else you can say about that one, is there? TKO very happy with how Triple H handled the press conference and eager for more of them to come. Spylock says, hearing what your kid did to you, Tom, I remember when my dad was teaching me personal defense and I left him knocked out. Sometimes accidents do happen. Like, clearly your dad there is trying to teach you something, and when he wakes up out of unconsciousness, he'll be like, yeah, go on. Michael says, Ibu on Wrestling Purist, thank you for sourcing as always, mentioned once that AEW requires either 3 or 5 year contracts, so Mercedes would have had to negotiate a shorter contract than the 3 years. That does actually line up pretty well. Moxley was a 3 year, Cody was a 3 year, CM Punk was a 3 year. That is pretty industry standard. It's also something I believe he tried to bring in at Fulham, Tony Khan. Didn't quite work out for them, but I think he tried. Khalid says, Tom, big fan of spoiler warning. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Khalid. I appreciate you. Vegeta doesn't see Finn leaving. 23 says, do the WWE or AEW do internships? Business internships? Yes. Wrestling internships? No. Blair says, was there any cool Rumble returns like Papa Shango? Honestly, no. Returns didn't really happen. Dan echoes my sentiment, saying Brandon's a man, no doubt about it. The man just gets it. And he also covers wrestling in a way that no one else does. He's the only person, if I see him report something, it's right. And that's it. It's right. Astrid says, Stephanie's pretty awesome, echoing the sentiment again. Mojo says, CM Punk still has time to recover until WrestleMania. He will do it. He absolutely will not. Mike says, sup? How you doing, mate? Blue says, TKO thinks that went well. Crazy. They do. And honestly, I think it did. I do think it did. They escaped with their tails between their legs, but they escaped. Vegeta also agrees it went well. Vapecar says, any news on Drew's deal? Drew McIntyre does not have a new deal incoming, it seems. The offer has been made by WWE, but they're very much just waiting for a response. Drew McIntyre wants world championships. WWE don't seem too invested in making that happen. Crush says, is Triple H in any danger of being fired? Not at this point in time, to my knowledge. If you're asking as regards the Vince McMahon allegations, I will not be commenting on them for fear of prejudicing the case. I've discussed everything that I possibly can as regards those. You can check out my Friday show where we discussed it at length. That's where the news is on that one. Blair's favourite was Diesel, returning in 2010. Mojo says, I mean, CM Punk might work injured, maybe with the power of love. He would have to put off surgery for months, which would make the situation a lot worse. Also, I don't think you can wrestle with that. Like, they do as well as they can. He did very well at the Royal Rumble. Long term, I'm not the biggest CM Punk fan. He did really well at the Royal Rumble. Really well. To continue as he did. So, credit to him. I don't see him working WrestleMania hurt. Half-hour match, not for him. KJ says, maybe with Punk out, it'll help Drew get closer to that much-wanted title. Brock out as well, let's not forget. Blue says, Deadline just had a report that emphasised the great week stuff from Triple H, which seems to be the part really sticking out for mainstream media and not well. Mainstream media, as with wrestling media, cannot comment too much on active allegations and court cases, so they're reporting what they can without fear of retribution. Late Talk says, hi Tom. Hello Late Talk, how you doing? Spider-Boss says, apart from some spots, the Women's Rumble had a couple of botches. It did, but to be fair, so did the men's. Also says, I think WWE could use CM Punk on commentary on Raw while he recovers from injury. We'll see how that goes. And Mojo says, maybe a freeway Punk versus Rollins versus Gunter is out in the first 10 minutes. Or, more likely, to avoid aggravating an injury that could see him retired, they just won't do that. I see. Razar says, the Bella Twins just released a statement about the WWE allegations. I'm surprised they don't work there anymore. I will read that in a moment. Let's do some more headlines. Damage Control's plans heading into WrestleMania. The plans for Damage Control have not changed. I expected Bayley to win the Royal Rumble. I reported the Bayley versus Io Sky was the WrestleMania match. What I have not reported, what I have said in my opinion, is Damage Control would not be breaking up before the Royal Rumble. I was confident that Bayley would win. Then it would come further down the line, closer to a Festival of Friendship situation. They're waiting for Dakota Kai to be the one who turns, because they don't believe, they are not that confident, that it will be a full face turn unless it's Dakota Kai who does it. Damage Control will continue to build their momentum away from Bayley while also being next to Bayley. As you saw at the Royal Rumble, there will be a celebration for Bayley, but it will largely be her celebrating herself. Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso opened the Royal Rumble. The WWE, in particular Triple H, is not confident that the Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso match that they have currently got lined up for WrestleMania is going to be one that the fans really get behind. So they wanted to throw these two together and give them a chance to really show what they could do and why you should be excited. Did it work? Because for me, personally, it didn't. I do think they had a couple of good moments, but it didn't make me excited for a match between the two. How about you guys? Having seen Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso start the Royal Rumble, are you more excited for their eventual WrestleMania match than you were? Michael says, I'm shocked Damage Control is still together. And Spider-Boss says, Damage Control could turn on Bayley as Evolution turned on Randy Orton in 2004, or they could turn on her in any of the other possible ways as well. Let's catch up. Crush says Punk could just do kicks. You laugh, Crush. Clearly you've never seen the 20-plus minute match from the G1 of Kota Ibushi versus... Oh, God. Oh, he's the singer. Oh, he does the Phantom of the Opera thing. Tai Chi. I swear I'm a fan. I'm sorry I've got brain damage. Tai Chi versus Kota Ibushi, where they spend 20 minutes kicking one... Bomaye? Not Bomaye. The knee. Kanagoi? That's the one. I am not nailing it today, but that was a really fun match. Referee Mojo, you're a funny guy. Hector says if 2023 was the year of the Judgment Day, I have a strong feeling that 2024 will be the year of Cody Rhodes. Rumble win, 2K cover in the main event of Mania, etc. I've said previously, my suspicion is that 2024 will be the year of Bayley. Blue says Bayley doesn't need a face turn, everyone already loves her. Yeah, so they might not need to worry too much about it. Razar says, I didn't see the Bayley Rumble win vision until he started predicting it. Honestly, happy for her. KJ says, Jimmy got a big pop once the fans realised who was in the ring. Yeah, the music hasn't really connected to people, has it? Blue says, I don't care about the Usos match, but honestly, while I like both guys, their wrestling doesn't do much for me. Juan says, no. Chris says, hug a Bayley when? In the past. Razar says, Jimmy versus Jay should have happened right after SummerSlam. The hype is gone for it now. They waited too long, in my opinion. I don't blame him. I don't blame you for it. KJ says, I'm excited for Jimmy versus Jay, but I feel neither has done anything substantial success-wise to feel more elevated since the split. Jay's super over but always loses. Jimmy has great character work, but always loses. Not unfair, they do always lose. Paris says, Tommy, you're all over the place, you need to stop wrestling. FTR says, it could work as a match, but not as a feud, which is not unfair, I don't feel. It's McKay says, I really wish they had more returns in the Rumble. Am I the only one? Also, hello, Tom. I hope you're really well. Doing a lot better, thanks, Sis McCade. Still not 100%, so I'm going to use my spray. While I'm doing that, a good point is being raised there. Does everyone agree or disagree with It's McCade there? Did you want to see more returns in the Royal Rumble? Chris suggests tribal combat for who? Roman Reigns is head of the table. Mojo says Jimmy versus Jay unless they do hardcore. If not, it's not that appealing. Vegeta likes Jimmy's music. Blesses. Tom, who's your favourite member of DX and what hairspray do you use? I don't use hairspray. I just go like this all the time. That's all I do. And Triple H. No question. Vape says any returns on Raw? No one knew. And David Leary says yee. I'd imagine there's more to that. Ed disagrees. It's nice to see. Noob says I guess making the Usos single stars was a dumb idea. I still believe that. Bailey says no, so happy with the level of hype. Wiggly says didn't really care about returns at the Rumble. Spider-Boss says Jimmy versus Jay should have been after Jimmy turned on Jay at SummerSlam. Carmelina says hi. Hello, Carmelina. Ramon says I don't think CM Punk's really injured. He is. It's McCade says to be honest, the Royal Rumble is the most likely place for legendary returns a year, so that's why I wish there was. KJ says I wish there were more Rumble returns too, but I agree with Triple H's ways. He's using his guys. It may not be the most entertaining, but it's very respectable. I get the reasoning behind it. It's genuinely good reasoning. We have 122 viewers and 84 likes. One more will get us to 85. Can you be my one? We still have a few headlines, and then I'm going to have a look at this Bella tweet. Malachi Black. Dave Meltzer has reported that Malachi Black and Buddy Murphy will be back in WWE as soon as they possibly can. Just before this came out, I reported that Malachi Black will be back in WWE as soon as he possibly can. Just before. In no way am I accusing him of taking the report, to be clear. He will have pre-recorded his. Just before. But to be fair, while I reported that on Twitter, on X, formerly known as Twitter, I've been saying it to you guys for a long time, essentially since Triple H came back. Malachi wants back. Buddy Murphy wants back. Miro wants back. I also said Andrade wants back. Here we are. As regards Elimination Chamber, the plan for the 2 Elimination Chamber matches is as follows. CM Punk was supposed to be winning one of them. It is exactly who you'd expect. CM Punk was supposed to be going over. Gunter looks like he's set to take his place in the Chamber at least, though Bron Breakker is likely to also make an appearance in that match. As regards the women's Elimination Chamber, Becky Lynch is indeed expected to be the one. But it's also possible that Rhea Ripley is likely to try and make that happen. While these results do seem pretty obvious, the injury to CM Punk has raised plentiful questions about it. Becky Lynch can continue to be the obvious one, much like I feel Bayley was with the Royal Rumble, whereas for the men's, they will now try and hide as much as they can who will eventually be picking up the win. I wish them luck, because it seems unlikely at this point. This is not the first report of mine that Dave Meltzer has confirmed in the last few days. He did confirm my report about Brock Lesnar versus Gunter being booked for WrestleMania. This is something I reported initially about 4 months ago and have repeated ever since. But there's other things that he's been confirming too recently, and I just find that very funny. For example, the plan is Seth versus CM Punk, he reported earlier this week. I reported that during the Survivor Series watch party. He also reported that the match that has been locked into WrestleMania for a long time is Becky versus Rhea. Reported that one several months ago too. So I just want to say a big thank you to Dave Meltzer. Hopefully, he'll start dropping my name soon as the originator of these reports, and then hopefully we'll see a boost in traffic. He's not going to. We know he's not going to. And my final headline is as regards Brock Lesnar. We are going to look at this Bella tweet shortly afterwards. Brock Lesnar's WWE status is currently employed and on hiatus. There is no time frame in that hiatus. Sources indicate he has been removed from creative plans and the whole face-heel dynamic lists. There is no booking being planned for Brock Lesnar at this point in time, but he is still apparently collecting a paycheck. So he is still working for the WWE. He is not at this point fired. But what I will say is that he's collecting a paycheck and there are no plans at current to have a Brock Lesnar appearance on WWE TV. Sean says, did Cody winning the Rumble surprise you? It did. It did. I very much thought it was going to be CM Punk, real down to the wire. Very much so. Just catching up, guys. Blue says Jay's merch sales have probably been good. Probably. I mean, you don't know. Sovik says, I feel returns are ruined and spoiled by Tony Khan and AEW to the fan base who expect returns and debuts most of the time. I think that's one of the reasons they're losing momentum at the moment. They did build their brand on, you never know what's going to happen. Well, now you do. Blair says, I still think WWE should have signed Jay White. The Raw roster sucks. The WWE were not able to sign Jay White. They tried hard to make it happen. Chris says, I was fine with the lack of returns as I feel like the Rumble matches were designed to showcase who they have now. Under Triple H's regime, that is indeed the plan. Andrew says, hello Tom, I enjoyed the Royal Rumble. I think this year was the first ever Rumble with no legends. Also, anything on Rock versus Roman match, will it be this year, after Mania, or next year? There are no plans at current for a match between The Rock and Roman Reigns on WWE TV. The Rock has not signed on to any matches with the WWE. I've been saying that for 5 years. It is still as true today. Dan says the men's rumble needed something to make it more engaging, and a surprise legend or two would have been good for that. I think they had every possibility of even just having them come down and support people. Some of the wrestlers involved could have had some sort of managerial moment. We could have seen more of Ellering, for example. But I'm very happy with the fact that we did see Karrion Kross get a good moment. There's ways and means, as you know, but there wasn't enough happening. It slowed down dramatically. It's a shame. Eric says, I'm your 85. Appreciate you, Eric. Also, ow. Just banged my elbow on the table. We're now at 91 likes. 9 away from 100. Life's good, guys. Life is good. Spider-Ball says, my problem with Cody is he's too melodramatic. There is always references to Dusty. Sean says, did you see the video of Roman's reaction to Cody's Rumble win? A couple of fans says over, and Roman gave them a look. Good. He knows how to work the audience. Ross says the returns just create the surprise element, but Triple H is using the roster over a few cheap pops. To be clear, I never saw Ty Dillinger involved, I'll say that. KJ says, isn't Black's contract up in 2027 though, said by Tony Khan? Yes, his contract is up in 2027. Doesn't mean he won't find a way out of it. The WWE are actively working to try and make things like that happen. They did succeed with TNA after all. Blair says, what's your favourite WrestleMania and least favourite? I think 34 was actually one of my favourites. I think it's the favourite. Primarily because the two opening matches. Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, The Miz, incredible. Charlotte Flair, Asuka, incredible. I absolutely love that one. KJ says, does Rhea main event Elimination Chamber 2? I think it's possible. I think the Women's Elimination Chamber main event's Elimination Chamber. And then Rhea comes down to do a stare down. Chris says, yeah, more questions on Malachi. FDR says, hit them likes, just a reminder. Only 7 more. It's a good moment, guys. Blue says, my guess for the Women's Chamber, Becky, Nia, definitely Becky and Nia, Shayna, Zoe, Nat, and Chelsea. I like what you've done there. Pete, once again, I've reported what I can, and I've left it there. Tommy says, will WWE go after Okada since Punk is out for Mania? In order to go after Okada, they need to actually be approached by Okada at some point so they know who to contact. Essentially, Okada doesn't seem too interested in WWE. I don't see it happening. Ramon says, let's be honest, Brock Lesnar doesn't need WWE, he's rich. Yep, and WWE made him rich. Blair says, Tom, if you were an 80s cop buddy movie, what wrestler would you pick as your partner? The Rock, in every way The Rock. He would make me cool. Nobody else can make me cool. I can't even make me cool. One, it's not a steal. I would appreciate it if he'd credit the originator of the news, but it's not a steal. Says Dave Meltzer has stolen your Mercedes money to AEW reports too. I did initially report about Mercedes money and AEW working together. I did then, but potentially working together. I did then report that something had changed. I did then report that WWE had made a huge offer, and I did then report that the contract offer had been rejected by Mercedes money. Apart from the last part, I was the first to report all of it. Blair forgot all about Karrion Kross. Razar says, the Rumble made me realise how terrible the current theme songs are in WWE. They really need to do something about that. Vajit says, the Rumble had legends, Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. Oh, it works, mate. Daniel says, smash the like button if you haven't already. Blue says, the biggest problem with the Rumble was the lack of moments. It just felt like the clock was running. I liked 34, I genuinely did. KJ says, I think Indy will get a chamber spot since she's from Australia. Just an opinion. They need to really build her up pretty heavily for it. Pretty heavily. Sovic, nobody lets Osprey go anywhere. Osprey chooses where he's going to go, and that's what happens. HCar says, hi Tom, any news on WWE Network in UK? By the sounds of it, and this is not my report, I believe this came from Dave Meltzer, by the sounds of it, the WWE Network will be shutting down in January next year. Now, what I have heard is that the WWE are not happy with the WWE Network. They're paying pretty big server costs for all of the different content that's on it, and the server costs are not quite fulfilling what they are looking for as regards a return to their revenue. So they want to get rid. Hector says, with CM Punk hurt, I wouldn't mind him on commentary. Chris says that FD are interested in returning to WWE. They were, then Vince came back and they weren't anymore. Blair says, which 80s wrestler would thrive on Dancing with the Stars? Probably Ric Flair. Hey Carl, how you doing, mate? You don't need to apologise for being late. I'm just glad that you're here, mate. Just glad that you're here. Spiderball says, Malachi Black wanting back to WWE. That would mean breaking up the House of Black or just taking them with him. Sean says, do you see Jade Cargill part of the Raw brand? Yes, I do. Do you see DIY winning the tag titles tonight? No, I don't. Spiderball says, I think Liv Morgan get a spot at the Elimination Chamber. That I agree with as well. Roger says, will Sonya Deville tag with Chelsea Green when she returns? Maybe. I suspect not. I suspect she'll find a new partner. Potentially Liv Morgan right there. Aled says, hello. Hello, Aled. And Carl says, a Punk injured before the Rumble or during? During. HCar says, any news on 2K24? Not at this point in time. I've reported everything I've got already. And Blair says, Rowdy Piper would have dominated Dancing with the Stars, which is a good shout. That is a very good shout. Right. Let's find out what the Bellas are saying, shall we? Bella Twins? What do you do if you want to search for the Bellas? Surely it's trending. Let's have a look at the trend. Surely they're trending. They are not trending. There's nothing there. Damage Control is trending more than they are. What is their Twitter handle, guys? What does it be? Surely someone's sharing this. I want to read it out. I want to cover it. I want to work out what's going on. I want to cover the news, guys. Is it just that not important that nobody's talking about it? Because if so, ouch. In every way, ouch. I don't see anything. Not good, this is it. Not good at all. Thank you, Aled. Appreciate that. That's exactly what I needed. For those who don't know, by the way, I do have a Discord. This seems like an ideal time to plug it. So I'm going to drop the invite link for anyone who does want to basically spend more time hanging out in the Discord, hanging out with me. You know where to find it. You know where to find it. So let's have a look, shall we? Thank you, KJ, as well. Brilliant, Aled. Nikki and Brie Bella's statement. So they didn't post anything on Twitter. Wrestling News Co. took it from their Instagram. They say, we are shocked and disheartened with the recent allegations against members of the WWE. It has been a lot to process since we found out this past week, just as you all did. This is something we don't stand for or condone from anyone, no matter who they are. We want all women to feel safe and supported in the workplace and in their everyday lives. Now, to be clear, Nikki and Brie Garcia do not need to comment on that. They do not need to make anything public. They have chosen to do so, knowing that it might open them up to, shall we say, a few potential issues. I give them immense credit for it. I give them immense credit for it. Well done, then. Spiderboss says, I think Bella's changed their Twitter handle now they left and use their real last names. Yep, Garcia. Thank you very much, guys, for that. Let's see what we got left. Salvik says, would Brody King someone to leave AEW with Malachi and Buddy? That'd be a guess. Daniela says, if Malachi does return, do you reckon he comes back with the Aleister Black name? That would be a guess. Also, if Murphy does return, I don't see something that he could fit straight into. Would you agree? That would be a guess. Carl says, with Punk out, that could make it easier and better with Priest cashing in. Yes, it could. Joey says, do you think Bruce Pritchard and Michael Hayes could be gone since TKO wants to clear house? Once again, I will not be commenting as regards the possibility of people losing their jobs due to an ongoing criminal investigation. Lovely, lots of people checking out the Discord. Blair says, Buddy Murphy's got no charisma. Wow, that's mean. Taylor says, Tom, you rock. Thanks for bringing us the wrestling news and no BS or spin. Thank you, that's what I'm aiming for. That's what I'm trying to do. I just want to basically present a show without all of the clickbait, without all of the guesswork, without all of the hyperbole, you know? All that jazz. Without any of that. I just want to present a show where I can say, hi, all of this is happening, but this is what's actually happening. Just this. Not all of this. Forget all of this. Just this. No messing around. Easy to understand. And if it's not easy to understand, you can ask questions and clarify it. Being approachable is, I think, my greatest strength in this wrestling stratosphere. And I thank you all for being here and helping me to do that. Smashy says, you've been Tom Colohue, we've been fantastic. Yes, you have. KJ says, I thought the comments by them weren't necessary. They're not even in the company. They didn't say anything for Vince's first allegation. They may not have, but there is a reason that they may have been called in for this one in particular. They have made a choice here, and I think as much as anything, it might be a message to John Laurinaitis. Chris says, several content creators went to the Royal Rumble to record and play 2K24. I've been in that boat myself. The A to the K wrestling show says that we'd like to see Bronson Reed and Indy Hartwell featured prominently at Elimination Chamber. Featured, yes. I wouldn't necessarily say prominently. HCAR says, any news about Ricochet and Braun Strowman? None at this point in time. I will be reaching out to try and work out what's going on with Braun Strowman at the moment, because I just want to know when he's back. No news on Hall of Fame yet, Blair. Joey says, do you see KO and Logan having a rematch at Elimination Chamber? Yes, I do. Danielle says, I can't wait until 2K24 comes out. It's looking like a really good game and some better in-game superstar looks. I'm excited and happy. Cal says, not gonna lie, I think Punk losing makes him look better as a professional because people in AEW would like to believe Punk wants the big moments and the limelight. People in general believe that because he does. That he's on record as saying that. Ray says, SCW Wrestling said he thinks AJ Styles will make an appearance in TNA in 2024. I'm kind of leaning that way myself. Yes, boys, Punk is injured. Alex says, did you see what SRS said about Okada? Nope. I have him blocked. And it's made my life much better. Just much better. I wouldn't go huge push Taylor, but I do think Bron Breakker will hit the ground running. Spiderball says, if Buddy returned, would be nice to see Buddy versus Dominic. I wouldn't hate it. We can make that work. Razar says, if I can see Indy and Candice versus the Kabuki Warriors, that would be cool, very much so. I think so, A to the K, that could definitely work. Not quite. Strawberry and lime. Nearly. They were, Daniela, I do agree with that. Spiderbots, if you want to know what I think about who could face Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, zip back right to the beginning of the YouTube video. It's all there. Joey, there is 3 years left. He is believed to be leading into 2027 before his contract expires. That's true, Blair. KJ says, speaking of SRS, to this day, he still strives to say he wasn't wrong about Punk, and he was 100%. Yeah. We all were. Oh, as a question I want to ask. A lot of people brought in BWE reports recently. BWE did say that the ending of Royal Rumble would be like crack. Wasn't. BWE said a lot of things. A lot of things about Mercedes money. Let's not forget to remember that when it comes to bringing news in from them in future. Aled says, AEW is confident they'll get Okada. This is a quote from Sean Ross Sapp. I don't think it's as done as a lot of people are implying it is. I think there are still some elements of that need to be discussed. Yeah, I don't... When it comes to who's implying that it usually is him. HCAR says, any news on Rey Mysterio? I don't have anything on that, unfortunately. Chris says, Finn Balor looked weak in the men's rumble. Why is that? Because he might be out the door. Davecar says, Braun versus Dom soon. I'd take it. Boyce says, just watched a video. McIntyre hit Punk with a DDT and Punk rolled away holding his arm. Gal says, I think we'll see the likes of AJ Styles, Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe all return to TNA, albeit in a wrestling or a guest appearance. I did KJ, but I still need to put my hand up every now and then. I did not see Punk returning. I also did, of course, report that Punk was trying to use wrestling media to come back to the WWE, so I I do think that certainly the actual Punk is coming. I didn't believe that, and I was wrong on that one. I'm still happy with my overall reporting. I'll say that. We're different people, Carl. We have different opinions. I appreciate that you don't let it bother you. The dude says BWE also said yesterday that Punk was fine. Yeah. Taylor says Braun versus Dorman is a good matchup. Also, it sounds alliterative and I like it. Blair says it won't matter if they get him, they won't book Okada right. What makes you think that? No news on returns at this point. Joey says, I noticed BWE always drop teasers and uses big words, so he doesn't have to take the blame if he gets something wrong. Crush, I have nothing on Finn Balor. KJ wants Drew to come out and clown Punk. Yes, A to the K, Jay versus Jimmy is expected. And King Arthur says, hey Tom, do you think Roman will say to Cody if he loses he can't challenge Roman as long as he is champion? Quite possibly, yes. Michael says, BWE Zero News Pro Wrestling Scoops always get everything wrong from the big shows. Suggesting, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, that they're all the same person. Spider-Boss says, BWE is basically clickbait just as Zero News. And yet people run their stuff and don't run this. Rob says, I was at the Rumble. It's a lot louder in person. The Drop is notoriously bad at concert venue with sound echoes and goes flat. Fair. There were a few people who didn't get great receptions, which I expected to. Liv Morgan, for example. Taylor, we'll find out. HCar says, any news on The Rock versus Roman? Nope, because to my knowledge, there is no plan for The Rock versus Roman. I've been saying it multiple times this show for 5 years, guys. We have 97 likes. 3 more to hit the 100. Double check, guys, for me. If you haven't hit like, consider it. Because 3 more gets us to 100. We've had 594 views, a big number for Spoiler Warning. Also means that this show's going to be advertised to a hell of a lot of people afterwards, meaning we'll likely... So we've got 105 now. I had a whole spiel ready there. Whole spiel. You guys are amazing. You guys are absolutely amazing. It is 17 minutes past 11. We've gone over by 17 minutes. We are going to wrap it up there. We didn't get WTF Wrestling this weekend because essentially I needed sleep. I basically slept through the entire Sunday. I don't think anyone can blame me. I was up until past 6 in the morning. So we didn't get WTF Wrestling. We will still have PLE Wrestling when I'll take a look ahead to the Elimination Chamber and a look ahead to what's changing about WrestleMania. And then on Thursday, we will, of course, have a Fun Fact Thursday. And we'll be back with WTF this weekend. In the meantime, as usual, I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.